Hi, I'm Diane McGarry with Drake Arts. With me today, our co-host, Tom McGarry, author Elizabeth Gonzalez James, and ASL interpreter, Gay. Elizabeth is a screenwriter and best-selling author of the novels Mona at Sea and The Bullet Swallower, as well as the chapbook Five Conversations about Peter Sellers. She has taught fiction writing at Grub Street, Pioneer Valley Workers Writers Workshop, Story Studio, and elsewhere. Originally from South Texas, Elizabeth now lives with her family in Massachusetts. Elizabeth, I've spent time in San Antonio and around Texas, so I was intrigued to read The Bullet Swallower. I really, really loved it. It evoked the land and the people. There's such a different feeling to the land down there. Ethos of the area and the history. I could smell, seriously, I could smell different aspects of the land and hear its sounds as I moved through your text. That was pretty amazing to me.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody.
For those of us that don't know and aren't familiar, could you talk about your family's connection to the story and all the resources you used, including the Oakland Public Library, which I love because I love libraries. They're so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So the novel, for people who haven't read it, The Bullet Swallower, it's a magical realism Western that's loosely based on the true story of my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather was a bandito in northern Mexico in the late 1800s. And the story that I heard is that he was shot in the face by the Texas Rangers, but lived. And afterwards, people started calling him El Tragabalas, which in Spanish means the bullet swallower. And so I took that little seed, that little nugget of a story, and I expanded it into this novel. And yeah, my family's been in South Texas slash northern Mexico for a really long time, since the 1500s, some of them. So they were some of the original people to settle that land. Well, original. They were not the native Mexican people, but they were some of the people who kicked those people out of the land and then took it. And so that's kind of my family connection to that part of the country. And I had to do a ton of research to write this novel. I have an author's note at the end where I kind of talk about my research process a little bit. And I joke and say that I had the idea to write a magical realism Western novel without knowing anything about magical realism or Westerns, and or life along the border in the 1800s or Texas Rangers. I knew nothing. So I had to very quickly get myself up to speed on pretty much every single topic that there is in this book. Um, I did a lot of reading. I read books about like the sociology of what life was like, or not sociology, what's the word? Like the anthropology of what life was like for Mexican peasants living along the border in the 1800s. I read a diary of a former Texas Ranger. I had to do a lot of research on the guns too,
Oh, yeah.
because I've never fired a gun. I keep putting it out into the universe that like I will happily go hunting with somebody. I'm not opposed to firing guns, like for sport,
Mm.
but just nobody's ever taken me. So. Like, and I've just never gotten it together to like drive myself to a gun range. So yeah, I've also never like killed anybody or been in a shootout. So like I had to soup to nuts, kind of figure out this entire world and also put my head in the mind of somebody who is a pretty violent person
Yeah.
and and has like a very reactive sort of personality, and that's just like not me at all. I joke that my childhood was more King of the Hill than Yellowstone, so I spent a lot of time at the mall, did not spend a lot of time out on the ranch. But yeah, I learned a lot, and I've been really grateful for the experience. It's truly changed me as a person writing this book, just the amount of education and like personal work on myself that I had to do. So it
Yeah.
was a whole process.
Well, you talk about it so incredibly, and um, clearly all your research paid off, but it's also, I have to say, there's so many people that write about things that they don't know what they're talking about. You really did. You really brought everything forward in a way that was not just understandable, it wasn't as if you were explaining anything at any moment in the book. You were just there with a character who is both a likable, unlikable person. It's I mean, in some of
Thank
his
you.
choices, but the choices that people had to make at those times, I mean, we don't live in a time where you have to defend your house with a gun. It's a very different time period, very different mentality. I mean, there are places in the world where you still have to do that, but not here. And
Hmm.
it just brings a whole different mindset and perspective. And you really brought that forward in a very interesting way. It was
Thank you.
incredible read. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and I have to give a lot of credit to the primary sources that I used. If there are any aspiring writers out there, if you're planning to do historical, if you can find any old diaries or
Yeah.
memoirs or old letters or even just snippets of things, songs that were written at the time, like those were so invaluable to me, much more than um, a history book or something like that. Also, uh, novels that were written at the time. Part of my book is set in Mexico City in the 1960s, and I've been to Mexico City, but it just was a different animal 60 years ago. And one of the best resources I found was Where the Air is Clear, which is a novel by Carlos Fuentes. And it's about these upper crust people in Mexico City. Um, just it's kind of an existential sort of novel. But it just gave me so many details, like what kind of dresses they wore, like they speak French casually, just to like kind of demonstrate that they're a little more upper class than everybody else. So it's just things like that that I don't think I would have gotten if I was just reading like a history of the city. And yeah, as you mentioned, Oakland Public Library. I live in Massachusetts now, but I was living in California for most of the time that I was writing this book. And yeah, interlibrary loan was an absolute like game changer for me. I could not have written this book if it hadn't been for interlibrary loan.
Libraries are just incredible resources. We are so lucky to have so many public libraries with such incredible, vast resources and books in them. And interlibrary loan is a wonderful thing. I mean, there's so many libraries that connect that way in our region and also across states. It's what a blessing that is, really.
Absolutely.
Until you need it, you don't realize how many resources we have that
Hmm.
are just, I was going to say they're taken for granted, but they're not. It's like you don't know you need it. And then, oh, how can I get this? Oh, well, I can get it for you, says the reference librarian. You're like, what? How does that?
Hmm.
I mean, it's just an incredible gift that we all give each other because they're public libraries. So we all
Hmm.
pay for them through our taxes. It's really amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But then I love books too. So so what started you on your writing journey?
Yeah, I came to writing a little bit later in life. And I mean, I later, like I was 28, but which is it's funny now, but at the time it felt like, oh, I'm so old to be starting this. Um,
No, I have kids that have been 28, so yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And it was hard enough at 28 to have something interesting or clever to say. I'm like amazed at people like Helen Oyeyemi, who published her first novel at 19. I'm like, what are you, a genius? Like, how do you how do you have anything to say when you're that young? Um, so I um I started writing um because I had gone back to school in the early 2000s to get an MBA. I just wanted to get a job and make a lot of money and just like slot myself into this middle class life. And an MBA seemed like a good solid plan to do that. And unfortunately, I graduated in December of '08, so that
Oh,
was just a couple months after Countrywide collapsed and Lehman Brothers and all these other places. And I was looking for an entry-level job in corporate finance.
mm,
I could not get anything. I
Mhm.
applied for jobs for all of 2009. I applied for something like 300 to 400 jobs. I lost count. And I couldn't get anything. I couldn't even get like a part-time receptionist job. And my husband was also unemployed, and we were living in his parents' basement. Um, and so that was an interesting time. And then I got pregnant, and then I found myself. We finally moved out of the basement into an apartment, and my husband got a job. But then I found myself in 2010, like in an apartment in Oakland where we had just moved to a strange city alone with a baby. My husband's at work all day, and I had planned on being this like career person. And then I found myself as a stay-at-home mom unexpectedly, and I was
It's big
uh,
change.
it was a big change, and so writing became kind of a initially a way to process the whiplash of like thinking I was going to go here, but instead I went there. And um of course, I'm really thankful for the opportunity to have stayed home and raised my kids, but I had a lot of I had a lot of anger about the recession, about how it came about how it was dealt with. I'm still angry about it, and I would be delighted to talk anybody's ear off for at least an hour if given the chance. But have a lot of axes to grind still. But yeah, so that kind of became the genesis of my first novel. It's about a millennial who loses their first job during the Great Recession, and then they're thrown into this sort of tailspin and have to figure out what they're going to do with the rest of their life. And um, the recession like completely rerouted the course of my entire life. And I'm sure that it did for a lot of people. And I still feel like we don't talk about that enough. Like I'm an elder millennial or geriatric millennial, however you want to call it. And I think that my generation is still going to be dealing with the recession for probably the rest of our lives. I don't know, but that's how I got into writing because I couldn't get into finance.
wow.
That's interesting. So you called yourself geriatric.
That is the actual like term for
Really? Wow.
it's we're the millennials born between I believe 1980 and like 1983.
Huh.
We are technically geriatric millennials.
Oh, that's funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's just funny.
yeah,
Um, huh. Do you want to explore that anymore? Talk any bit about that? Because that's an interesting
yeah.
dilemma and an
About
interesting burden too to have.
being a millennial or the
Like
recession.
geriatric, either one.
Oh, well, yeah, being a geriatric millennial is hilarious because I feel like I'm still seeing on social media, someone will say like, "Oh, those darn millennials," and I'm like, "You realize we're literally in our early 40s by this
Mm,
point.
mm,
Like, you can't still be talking about how, we just want to drink kombucha and like grow weird mustaches anymore. Like, come
mm,
on, everybody's
mm,
got sciatica and a parent with dementia and like a mortgage.
mm,
Like we're all going through the same things that all people go through in their middle age.
mm,
Um, yeah, so it's just kind of funny. But we're doing that without the safety net that I think the previous couple of previous generations enjoyed before us. Like we haven't had time necessarily to build equity in our homes. We don't have we're not going to be looking forward to a pension. A lot of people are still working, gigs and don't have full-time employment. So like they don't even have, retirement or anything. It's going to be weird and sucky like when we get older. And nobody wants to talk about that either. So
That's a really good point, and those are very, very valid concerns. And they shouldn't be overlooked because preparing for when you can no longer work and when you can no longer really take care of yourself, that's
Mhm,
fundamental. That's a You're talking to somebody who's a worst case scenario planner here. So,
mhm,
I mean, being able to take care of yourself and being able to provide for yourself as well as your spouse and hopefully your kids, those are really important issues.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. So it's being a millennial is kind of a weird it's been a weird ride. And like the best definition that I've seen too of what a millennial is we had an analog childhood but a digital adulthood. Um like I grew up, we had a typewriter in my house, and I learned to type in the sixth grade, still on an electric typewriter. But then by seventh grade, everything had moved to computers, and I had internet by the age of 14. And so I feel like I still have a foot in the past. I know what it was like, before everything, before all this connectivity and everything. Um, and so it puts me in a weird position because now I have kids too. So I have a 15-year-old and I have a 12-year-old. And I see my 15-year-old and her head is constantly down in the phone. And so is mine. So I can't really tell her like put it away, stop. But it's at the same time, I feel like those younger kids are never going to understand boredom and stillness in a way that my generation did. And we might be the last ones. But I mean boredom like there's nothing on TV, there's no phones or, video games. So I don't know, you just have to like invent something to fill your day. And that's where the most like that's where all your executive functioning kicks in, and that's where your most interesting thoughts happen too. And I worry that I worry that my generation is going to be the last one that maybe appreciates that to any degree.
It's very interesting because I recently read an article about a family up in Maine that decided to re reconnect their landline.
Mm-hmm.
Their kids do not have cell phones and they can only call on the one family phone so that everybody's around. You can't, it's not one of those portable mobile phones either.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
wired to the wall. And they did it for things that you're talking about because they felt like their children were being isolated, that they didn't really know the other people in their class. They weren't using their mind. They weren't using their mind. And all of those kids' families agreed. So now there's this whole community of people that are not letting their kids have cell phones and are using landlines and reinstituting them. It's very interesting. It's also interesting to me that a lot of schools are now demanding that kids put their phones away. I mean, so you're actually talking to the choir, Elizabeth. I have
Yeah, yeah, for
to,
sure.
because I homeschooled my kids and they weren't allowed on a computer until my son was going into eighth grade and actually my daughter was going into sixth. And we had one family computer. It was in the middle of a hallway that everybody walked by all the time. So there was not privacy. There was, and actually at the time, because everything was hardwired, people were saying, no one's eating dinner together anymore. Well, we ate dinner together, but that was like the thing. Nobody's eating dinner together anymore, right? So put the computer in the dining room so it's in public area, right? So
Hmm.
you're not off hiding somewhere. Of course, now people are hiding at the table with each other because they're just looking at their cell phone, like you said, and they're not communication skills are going down, cognitive skills are going down, being able to be patient through a long chapter and a long description
Mhm.
is going down. And
Hmm.
um, what happens with boredom, I mean, think of all the inventions that people have had because who was sitting under a tree and things kept on falling on his head?
Mhm.
I
Hmm.
mean, who just was looking at, oh, when are the birds coming? Being completely aware of what happens in nature and how the cycle goes, not just from dawn until dusk, dusk until dawn. I mean, how many people are aware of the pre-dawn when the sun starts to come up and all the birds start to sing at 2 or 3 in the morning?
Hmm.
Those gifts, those are really gifts, being aware of all of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm trying to just for me at least meditate and start to get into mindfulness a little bit and get off screens and try to be present in the world, touch grass as we say. Um and it's, I can do that for me. It's one thing, it's another thing entirely for me to tell my kids like
Yeah.
get off the phones and go outside. Like I do tell them that all the time, but it's just you've had kids, like they'll ignore you or they'll find a way to go outside and bring their phone anyway. And
Yeah.
well,
When our
it was,
kids were little, there was a book. I don't remember its exact title, Diane, you might remember, but kids have nothing to do. So they make a town. It's called Rocks and Blockson. I don't know if that's the
I know
title.
that book.
And it's just amazing. They several lines of stones, and this is uh, City Hall, and this is the general store, and this is the police. And so, they make a whole imaginary town. And it's just very creative, and they go there and they have fun starting with nothing because they were bored.
Hmm.
So I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but they didn't have nothing. They had their minds and they had their imagination.
And they had rocks and dirt, which
And they had rocks
actually
and
can be an
dirt.
important resource. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very important resource. Yeah. It's I made my kids go out and play a lot too.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And we would go to Cranes Beach here in Ipswich, and the next day the sand ferry would have brought sand back to us that slowly filled up our sandbox. So they could
Hmm.
play. I mean, I think yeah. When I was raising my kids, one of the things I realized, and actually this is all those stories that you went back to get about the era when you were writing Bullet Swallower, that eras that I had to go back and find finger play stories and songs because we didn't use them that much when I was growing up, but I knew they were there. They were just from my grandparents.
Hmm.
And bringing all that stuff forward is really important because hand-eye coordination, man, we still need it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I think we need it more than in the past because we don't exercise it as much, at least for
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I wonder what will happen to all the writers if they're just on their books, on their phones all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a newsletter that I subscribe to called Sweater Weather, and it's by Brandon Taylor. He's
Mhm.
the author of Real Life and Filthy Animals and Real Americans, I think was his last book. Anyway, so he's wickedly smart, and he's a teacher of writing, and um, he has he said in one of his newsletters, he noticed that his students were um, writing these stories where there was a lot of distance between the action and the narrator. And he realized it was because like this generation is watching things happen rather than participating necessarily. So they're watching a fight on the phone, but they're not fighting, like you're not going to get Ernest Hemingway, style fisticuffs anymore. You're going to get somebody who's watching a fight on their phone and they're having an internal like reaction through and we're getting it then at another layer, at another level of remove. So it's mediated between the narrator and then it's mediated once more between us. So yeah, it's what you're going to get is stories that I think are more distanced and internal. Yeah, I think. I don't know.
The internal process of characters and human beings is very important, though, too.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess what more was drawing me was when you were talking about that was the non-participation, just the observer. Because if you're always an observer,
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I'm thinking of Nick in The Great Gatsby. He was an observer, but he was also a participant. I mean, he was there in the car, he was there for all the parties. So yeah, he was right in the mix.
yeah, it's interesting. Well, this is a
Yeah.
perspective I did not expect to get. But I mean, the future of writing and the future of humanity are very important things, and how we're going to relate to each other and be together. Those are really important issues.
Hmm.
And I've never heard the term geriatric millennial before.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy that I was able to introduce you to that.
But yeah, hmm. It's interesting. My nieces and nephews are in their 50s, and my kids are just hitting their 30s. So huh, it's interesting. I'll have to talk to them about their perspective on this as well,
Mm,
Hmm.
because Tom and I are both in our 70s, so it's a whole
mm.
life is so different. I remember introducing my daughter to a rotary phone. She'd never seen one. And these things,
Hmm.
I mean, Tom has an uncle who worked for AT&T when it was the phone company. And in his kitchen was a little phone that hooked on the wall, and there was the dial mechanism was on the top, and then there was a string to the top
Hmm.
of your ear. And I'd never seen one like that before.
Yeah, I used to watch Lassie when I was a kid because we had Nick at
Oh,
Night.
yeah.
And so I know that that's the phone from Lassie.
Yeah.
Whenever Timmy's mom or whatever would have to call for help, she would
Well,
like,
that's different. That one you wind up,
hello, hello.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's even more advanced than the one he's laughing.
Oh, okay, I see.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, it is amazing what we learn and what we take for granted.
mm.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is in his 80s. He still calls it an ice box.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I grew up thinking that icebox and refrigerator were synonymous. And then I think I Googled it one time and I was like, oh, it was literally a box with ice. Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for speaking us
yeah.
today, Elizabeth. This has really been a fun exploration of
Yeah.
things beyond the written word. To hear Elizabeth's works, please join us for her reading and Q&A during our January Arts Saturday. You can register on our website, drakeetarts.com. We'd also like to thank our donors for making this program possible. And if you're interested in being a donor, please go to drakeetarts.com/donate. To purchase her books, all you need to do is go to our bookstore. Oops, here we go. We'll find our bookstore. There we go. That is at, well, you can see the address right there. Anyway, um, bookshop.org/shop/drakeetarts. For more information about our Art Saturdays and other programs, visit our website, drakeetarts.com, or email us at drakeetarts@gmail.com. This and all our programs are archived on the Drake It Arts YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@drakeetarts. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.